You're tuning in to the Raised by Rentals program. This podcast will contain strong language and spoilers for decades-old media properties. Join us. Welcome, everybody. This is the podcast where we examine pop culture franchises of the VHS era and improv new stories straight off the noodle like an intergalactic poodle eating the flying spaghetti monster's meatball eyeballs to imagine how we might improve our favorite movies, TV, and games. I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And we were raised by rentals. Mike, it's beginning to look a lot like Halloween.
Woohoo! I'm sorry, the spaghetti monster threw me. I wasn't expecting that.
Well, that's good. I literally just made that up. Like, we make up a lot of shit on this show, and it worked out pretty well.
I would say so.
Well, it fits right in with the spooky season theme that we've had going around here since the last episode, technically. But you know what? We're probably going to do it for the rest of the year. So I'm pretty excited about it. You know, it's as we record this, it's still September, but like we said last time, September's almost October, and October means Halloween. And there's a Friday the 13th this year, so I'm super excited about that.
I stand by my assessment that all of September is Halloween Eve.
Yeah, there you go. And by that logic, all of October is just Halloween every day, all day.
Exactly.
Nice. So last night, Tegan had a friend over, and they began the annual binge watch of the Friday the 13th series. I wasn't able, they wouldn't let me sit in with them because, you know, teenagers didn't want to hang out with their lame ass dad. Jerks.
I want to have fun too.
I want to watch Jason movies. Come on, guys.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, so they decided to start with part 6, Jason Lives, which is my favorite movie, so I can't complain. But at the same time, her friend, Tegan's friend, had never seen any of them before, and it left me wondering, is part 6 the best place to start, or is it like way too far into the franchise and it's confusing? The more I thought about it, the more I thought like that might be the best place to start with the older movies, like pre-remake. I mean, what do you think?
I feel like it is, only because, like, you know, what Jason became pop culturally is like this unstoppable, you know, unkillable juggernaut, and that's really the film that kicks that off. Everything prior to that, it's like, yeah, he's badass, yeah, he's strong. Like part 4, he gets his fucking hand split and barely flinches, like, you know. So I feel like, you know, the other movies have their place, obviously, but part 6 feels like that's the pop culture version of Jason that everybody knows, you know.
Yeah. And I think I came to the same conclusion. I was like, yeah, you know, he pops up right in the very first scene, so you don't have to wait around for half the movie while you see POV shots from the woods. You know, like he's just
right
there immediately, looking like a badass coming out of the grave. He's already the like unkillable, undead, you know, force of nature. He kills somebody in that very first scene. You get to see him in daylight, and then they explain the whole backstory almost as if they have to like remind the audience, you know. And I'm like, man, I was kind of like listening from down the stairs thinking this is actually a pretty genius idea. Like start with 6 because, you know, the first 5 all have an issue, right? Like Jason's not in the first one. He doesn't wear the mask in the second one, even though it has a great like recap scene. I love that campfire at the beginning. You know, part 3, I know a lot of people love that one, like you, but it has some problems. You know, the 3D effects and the story is a little bit weird, even though he gets the mask finally. Part 4 is probably the best choice before 6, but again, you kind of have to just like figure out some of the backstory as you go because it jumps right into like Jason was just here killing people. What happened to him? You know,
and he's really not in it a lot. Like he's barely in that movie. It's mostly just the third act.
Yeah, that's true. And it's a lot of character focus on characters that you never really see again, you know, except for Tommy. And it's nice to have an origin story for Tommy and then who comes back in part 6. But again, you don't really need that because they kind of explain it in the dialogue in like the truck on their way to the graveyard at the beginning of 6. And of course, you know, 5 is the imposter Jason, so really not a good place to start, I think, by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, I was like, I think that probably is the best choice. So good on Tegan for, you know, she basically was just like, look, I told my friend about like, Jason's mom and the drowning and all that, and like we're just gonna watch it. I'm like, okay, and I think it works pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I feel like I know you and I have talked about this over the years that like a lot of kids started with Part 6. Like in our age bracket, a lot of people started with Part 6 because, again, by that point, like that was when Jason had become part of the pop culture language. And even though we all knew of Jason, it wasn't until Part 6 that he was everywhere. It's kind of like with Freddy Krueger, like, yeah, Part 1 and Part 2 were really popular, but by the time Part 3 came around, Freddy was everywhere. I mean, dude had his own 1-900 number at that point.
Yeah, and actually, now that you mention it, I think Part 6 probably was my first one too. I remember the first time I saw Part 6, and I'm pretty sure that was the first time I had seen a Jason movie. But yeah, like you said, I knew about them both. In fact, I remember the first time I ever saw Freddy Krueger's name spelled was on a toilet stall in my elementary school when I was in the second grade. I remember going in.
It's kind of terrifying.
It is. I remember going in to use the toilet, and like I never want to sit down at school, but like sometimes you have to.
Yep.
And yeah, somebody had drawn the knife glove with Freddy Krueger. Like that's all it said was the glove, and then it had his name. And I also that's when I first realized, and this is probably why the memory stuck in my brain, that his last name was Krueger and not Cougar, like the big cat. Because as a kid, you just hear people talk about it, and it's like, oh, this guy with like a claw hand, like he's like Freddy Cougar, right? Like he's got like cat claws, right? That's what it is, right, guys? Right, guys? I'm cool, right?
Side note on that, the one time that really sticks out in my memory that I did that exact thing, where I really got the name wrong, was with Beavis and Butthead. When I kept hearing people talk about it, and I was like, what is this? And I was like, is one of the characters' names Butthead? Like, do I have that right? And like, so I was convinced that was wrong. And I was like, Beavis and the other guy, Butt? And they were like, yeah, it's Butthead. And I'm like,
sure.
Oh, okay, I had it wrong.
Oh God, something like that kind of happened to me back in, it was 2010. I went to the Small Press Expo in Maryland, and I've been wanting to go to that independent comic book convention forever. And I went by myself. I didn't know anybody there, but I was just trying to just kind of be open to like, I'll just chat with whoever. And there were some professionals tabling there who were really down to just have a conversation and just chat. And, it wasn't like I was pretending we were buddies all of a sudden, but it was a way to sort of pass the time. And then I'd see them in the bar later and maybe chat for a few minutes. But at one point there was this group of people sitting around in the hotel bar that I had seen like on the floor earlier. Obviously they had come together and they were drinking and having fun and passing around notebooks, like, sharing sketches with each other. And I just sat down near them, having my beer, reading a comic I brought with me. And at one point, they kind of invited me like, hey, come check this out, come look at these sketches. And it was a combination of professionals who had drawn in their sketchbooks, and then they had their own sketches in there too. And they started doing this jam sketch where somebody drew out like 8 panels on a grid and then drew a couple of characters and then handed it over. The next guy drew a couple of characters and handed. And by the time it got to me, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like they're going to include me. I'll draw. And I didn't know who the characters were on the page. And I was super confused because I wasn't sure if this was something that they had made up original or if it was characters I just didn't recognize. And so I asked the guy, I was like, oh, who's this? And he's like, oh, that's Finn from Adventure Time. And I'm like, fuck, like I'd heard of Adventure Time, but at that point I'd never actually watched it, So I had no idea who the characters were. So I was like, all right, cool. So I just drew the next panel trying to like do the next part of the comic. And I had no idea what the characters looked like. So I'm just trying to copy the other panels. And it was also this weird, like surrealist storyline that had begun before I got it. Like the characters were melting like a Salvador Dali painting. And so I just tried to go along with it. And the guy who got the notebook after me, I kind of feel like he gave me a weird look of like, what the fuck did this guy do to screw up our comic? Because I had no idea what I was doing.
Oh man, that sounds horrifying. Like I would be like, I don't know what to do.
I know. I was like, oops. So yeah, I definitely sat with someone else at the bar the next night, after the con was over. Like, sorry guys. So out there, someone has a jam comic of Adventure Time. They were like, I don't know, some fucking stranger fucked it up on panel 6. Just forget about it. Anyway.
Oh, that's too funny.
So speaking of jamming on something together, Mike, let's say you and I make up a story, eh?
Hey, that sounds fun to me.
All right, so enough preamble. Let's dive into what we're here for, which is to improv new stories to imagine how we might improve our favorite movies, TV, and games. Except this time, we're not going to improve or retell or continue any existing movie, TV, or game property. We're going to make up one completely on our own. We mentioned last episode that we wanted to do this, and it goes back to just recently. We did our late night double feature picture show where we did that 2-part special with Hot Garbage and the Venga Bus of Death. And those were really fun. And it was really just an excuse for us to just make up our own story without being beholden to an existing movie or franchise or characters. And while those are always fun improv challenges, I mean, it's literally the reason why we do this show at all. But sometimes it's fun to just kind of shake off those limitations and do whatever we want. And we kind of eased into it with those two because they're at least sort of based on existing pop culture things. You know, the Venga Bus of Death being based on that ridiculous song, and Hot Garbage, which was, you know, kind of based on the Count Creepy Head Saturday Morning Monster Mash podcast, and just, you know, pop culture sort of 80s, you know, low budget movies in general. So we thought, hey, let's do it again because it was a ton of fun. And originally we hadn't planned on coming back to it so soon. We were going to go back to our normal programming, but like, you know what? Fuck it. It's spooky season. We have a couple of Hollywood franchise Halloween themed episodes planned. So why not just do a couple just for us, right? Have a little fun with it, because we talked how we got some great feedback in those episodes, but even just amongst you and me, they're two of the best episodes I think that we've done in a long time, just in terms of how much fun I had.
Oh, absolutely. No, I definitely. I think that was the most fun I've had doing the show, and I don't get me wrong, I enjoy doing the show pretty much every episode. There's only been like once or twice where I was just not in the right headspace when we recorded, and you know that was on me. But as far as like the topics and everything, I always have a blast. But that was the most fun I had since the Mousetrap episode, and the reason that the Mousetrap episode was so fucking great was that I didn't know what was coming next. You know, and which kind of leads me to this, because I don't really know what you're going to propose. You did kind of throw a couple story ideas my way in our chat, and I know what this one's called, and I know a very loose basis of like one of the themes, but I don't really know anything else about. So I'm kind of going in really blind on this. I have a blank sheet of paper and a pen in front of me so I can take notes for names, but I don't know what to expect, and I am excited as hell.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I have also had some episodes we recorded where I found myself kind of tuning out halfway through, and I'm like, no shit, like get your head in the game. Come on, like focus, we're recording, you know, because and it's not necessarily because they were bad episodes or bad topics, but sometimes we get lost in the spiral of like, oh fuck, I don't know what to do next. Like, you know, the improv is like, you know, spinning out of control, and I'm like sort of like losing the end game here. But sometimes it's just that we kind of already know what the episode would look like when we started, and then it becomes less fun because it's like, yeah, this is just a little bit of paint by numbers, like getting to the end that we kind of already figured out. So this one is totally original. The only caveat here is that I wanted it to fit into spooky season, so it had to have some kind of a dark element. But other than that, this is a completely original idea, not based on anything. And this episode right now, we're going to do my idea. Next episode, you bring your idea, and I'll come to the table just as empty, and we'll do it over again. And very much like with our last double feature, I'd love to hear the feedback, you know, from you, the listeners, to tell us what you thought of the two ideas, and you know which one you like better, because it's not really a competition, but I still want to win.
Oh, absolutely. And I, you know, I will definitely concede. I do believe, as far as our feedback goes, while both Hot Garbage and the Venga Bus of Death got a ton of great feedback, we both heard lots of good things. I think the consensus was that Hot Garbage was the winner of the two, which I'm totally fine with, because like I said, I want to see both of them as movies, so I was excited as hell about both. So yeah, no, I will say you definitely won last round. So we will see what happens with this one.
Well, sweet. Thanks for saying so. But I listened to them both recently, and yeah, I can't decide. So I might take the nod by a nose, but other than that, like it doesn't matter. So here's my idea. Because it's Halloween season, we had to do something fun. Go back to the well of like traditional horror ideas, you know, vampires, monsters, Frankensteins. So I thought it'd be fun to do a zombie story. And we've done some zombie stories on here before, most recently with Sam when we did our take on a sequel to Return of the Living Dead in the mall. But so I've had this idea for a long time, and it's just sort of like an elevator pitch idea for a story that I thought would be fun, like a hey, wouldn't it be cool if kind of idea. But I never did anything with it because I didn't know how to make it work as a story. And I just kind of sat on it like, yeah, that's a fun concept for a zombie story, but I don't know if I'll ever write that or turn it into something. And then when you and I were talking about coming up with ideas, something clicked in my head and I thought, oh, this is perfect. I know the perfect way to take this idea and then make it something that you specifically and I collaborating on will be a more fun story than anything that I probably would have written on my own. So that
Okay.
that being said, so the title of this is going to be Look Alive. And you've heard that phrase before. People say things like "look alive, people," and it basically means like get busy, chop chop, hurry up, let's go. Don't laze around. But I heard someone say that, and I don't know where, years ago. This is in a notebook of mine from randomly scribbled down from years ago, where I heard somebody say it, and I thought, wouldn't it be funny if the title "Look Alive" literally meant appear to not be dead? Like to pass yourself off as living. And I thought, man, it would be really funny if there was a story where there was a zombie or a group of zombies who had enough intelligence to realize that if the humans around them realized that they were zombies, that they would shoot them in the head like every other zombie around here. And so instead they have to pretend to be living humans and fit in so that they can, quote unquote, survive.
Okay, I like this. I like where this is going.
But I'm sure you can see right off the bat where it's like, yeah, that's a cool concept, but like, then what? How do you write a story from like a zombie's perspective? Are they intelligent enough to narrate a story in the first person? Is it just going to be a whole lot of like shambling around? It's like, I don't like, and where does that go beyond, oh, hey guys, like, don't get caught? But then like, where's the arc? Where's the emotional story arc for characters who are literally dead? And I could never figure it out, but this is when it clicked. So here's what we do. Since we have this concept of a zombie or zombies trying to quote unquote survive or like reverse survive, what if this were a survival horror video game?
Oh, okay.
Where the main character or characters, because it could be a co-op game, where you're a zombie and you're placed into an environment where, like a town or some limited space where there are humans, and you as a character, as a player, have to survive as a zombie, eating whatever zombies eat and hiding wherever zombies hide, while not being discovered as a zombie to fit in with these humans, long enough for X event to happen. Like obviously there has to be some kind of an ending to it. But I think it would be fun because then instead of having to come up with some kind of a story arc, it would just be what kind of like fun side adventures could we get into where you're a zombie, it's sort of like a Weekend at Bernie's,
Nice.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, so what do you think so far? I mean, just listening to that pitch, like what comes to mind?
I really like the concept. I'm trying to think of like, if we went the route of like proposing it as a game, I would be focused mostly on mechanics. But like as far as like story wise, I like the idea of somebody who is a zombie and they have to pretend they're not. So the thing that I immediately went to when you brought that up is like a high school comedy. Like that was the first thing that came to mind is that,
Okay.
Like let's have like a group of pranksters, they do something silly, like, hey, let's break into the old lab, something dumb, they break in, somebody gets infected with zombie virus, however that's going to happen, whether it be like they get bit by a test subject, they, get a face full of some kind of chemical, something happens, they get sick, they realize they're turning into a zombie, they're having cravings for flesh, they're looking a little pale and down. How would that person, make themselves quote unquote look alive? So I'm just imagining like this character who's like kind of like just your average punk, like your average jerk, suddenly going like all goth and spooky, and everyone's like, what's up with him? And like, like some kids are noticing him, like maybe the girl that never gave him the time of day is like, ooh, he's dark and creepy, like all of a sudden there's like people changing around him, and the whole time he's slowly decaying and has to like hide it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love that too. I love the comedy of that. But again, the problem that I had, and maybe we can figure it out together, is I didn't know where to go from there. It reminds me a lot of the movie, and we mentioned it when we had Sam on a couple episodes ago, the movie My Boyfriend's Back, where,
Oh yeah, shit, I forgot about
yeah,
that. Okay, yep.
yeah, where it's the same kind of thing. It's like a high school comedy where this guy, for whatever reason, he's dead, and he's just trying to go to high school, man. And yeah, and it becomes a sort of a allegory for like racism, or maybe homophobia, because everyone else at the school, they're like, you don't belong here, zombie boy, or
Right.
whatever.
But in that one, they all know he's a zombie.
Yeah, exactly. I know exactly, but I'm not saying we can't do it that way. But I kind of like and I love the vibe of that movie. So yeah, I'm totally down for that kind of idea.
Right.
I just like this idea of it being like a video game, because I felt like instead of having to worry about, okay, what's the story arc of like our zombie, and he's got to, something has to go bad, he's got to hit rock bottom, he's got to like find the solution to his problem, and like get the girl, make the friends, whatever, like we could do all of that, or we could come up with like fun little scenarios of like, how does a zombie who's hiding out in a school or a town, how does he find brains to eat, or whatever, like how does he survive, is there more than one, like maybe there's a group of them, and it's one of those games where you go online with your little crew, and there's 3 or 4 of you together, and you all have to kind of like work together to like, okay, we all got to go out and get supplies, but don't get caught, and if one person gets caught, then the other people might get caught too, and so you kind of have to like work together. And the more I thought about those sorts of scenarios, the more excited I got about like going back and revisiting this idea.
You know what, the idea of it being a game, what it's kind of reminding me of is there is an indie game called Party Hard. I don't know if you've ever heard about this, but it's like a
No.
top down kind of 3/4 view. The basic premise is really hilarious. Like, you're just some dude trying to sleep, and there's a party next door that won't shut up. So you get pissed off and decide to go kill the party.
Nice.
And the whole point of the game is like you have to like sneak around the game. Like you see all the different rooms, and like you have to kind of like get people alone,
Okay.
and then murder them, and like in some cases you have to hide the bodies, because like if someone finds the bodies, they'll call the cops. If someone sees you, they'll call the cops. So like you have to hide in like little areas, like there's little alcoves where you can hide from the cops and like escape them and stuff like that. But it's ridiculously addictive, and the whole point is just getting people away from the rest of the crowd to kill them.
Okay.
And,
yeah.
That was the first thing that went to my mind, is like, how would you play this as a game? And that would be, you'd have to like lure people away for one reason or another, and then like kill them and dispose of the evidence.
Okay, so let's kind of combine these together then, because there's no reason why we can't make this our own thing. And I don't really play games, so you're going to have to be the expert when it comes to that. Like, I'm not really a video gamer. So you said, what if it's a high school comedy? And I love the idea of a character who decides to like have a goth phase, because it's like easier to hide, like, put on like white makeup and shit. And, suddenly like you're into the Misfits and you got to wear, white and black, clown makeup or whatever.
Right.
I really like that idea. But I also really like this idea of doing this video game, because while I was really trying not to think too far ahead, at the same time it's hard to not be like, oh, I could do this, and oh, I could do that, and I was just thinking of all these kind of like fun scenarios, and I have a couple in mind. But also you could have like different endings based on like how good of a job you did of like staying under the radar.
Right.
So I'm going to propose 2 things. I'm going to propose, number one, we do a video game, and it basically comes in like 3 sections. It's almost like 3, not separate games, but there's like 3 endings, right? In sequence. So the first part of the game, you play by yourself, and we do exactly that. You're a high school student, and you can pick, what your gender and appearance and whatever is going to be. You're going to customize your character. And yeah, something happens in the lab of this high school that turns you into a zombie, and then this gas or chemical or whatever it is escapes out into the atmosphere, goes up in the sky, like in Return of the Living Dead. There's a storm, and you start hearing like, news accounts of, the living dead rising from the graves and all this. And so, but you as the main character, you and maybe a group of people in your school were at the epicenter of it. And for some reason you like maintain your intelligence. Right.
Okay.
And so suddenly now it's like, you're just trying to go to high school, while on the news everyone's afraid of like zombies. Everyone's kind of on the lookout, on like high alert, high suspicion. And so the first part of the game is just you by yourself, like learning the mechanics of how this world works. You go to school, you got to like find ways to eat brains, whether that's other students, if you want to risk trying to kill a student, and then like, can you get away with it? Can you lure them away? Can you hide the evidence? Can you distract their friends? Like what happens when their parents come to school looking for them? Maybe that's like a sub quest where it's like you have to forge a note to the like a suicide note or something to the parents, like something you know what I mean? It's like there's this whole scenario of like, how do you, or maybe you choose not to kill, and you're like catching rats, or maybe those specimens they have in formaldehyde in the science lab are edible. I don't know, you'll find out. And
Okay.
so it's like you're going to kind of like learn the mechanics of the world, what you can eat, what you can't eat, what you can survive on. Like maybe human brains are like, boom, full health. But maybe like a rat brain is like you get 1 bar and like you got to eat a bunch of rats or whatever. And it's like you have to kind of make your choices. And then you sort of win the first part of the game if you manage to like graduate and nobody caught you, you know? But then after graduation, it's like, oh no, like the zombie horde from out of town is coming. The zombie plague that spread all around our little suburban town. Now the zombie plague is coming. So now everyone in town is locking down. They're putting up barbed wire, putting up a wall. And suddenly it's like being in The Walking Dead, where every little suburban town in Georgia became like a fortress, And so you're like, shit. I can't even leave town now because they locked the whole place down. They're on the lookout for zombies. So now I got to stay here long enough to figure out what my next step is. Do I leave, or do I survive here? Do I find others like me? And this is what I thought it could be a cool like multi-part game, because maybe if you graduate to chapter 2, maybe this is when it becomes a co-op. Like you can't join co-op until you've graduated high school, and then if you do, now the mechanics enough where you can like find other people in town who are like you and kind of like team up and help each other out, right?
Okay. All right. So you give me a couple ideas here. Okay. So how about this? Like I immediately, you made me think of the movie Fido, where there are these walled off towns, and then there's the deadlands between the towns, where it's like there's the zombie virus. They're out in the wilds, but in town it's this happy suburban, like, but well watched over town. Like there's like military characters all over the place. So what if it's something like that? Like the opening like cinematic of the game would show like some kind of government experiment gone awry. Like there's a Chernobyl like event. So wherever this power plant or laboratory or whatever, like CDC style lab, let's say, where it something goes wrong, this virus escapes and it infects tons of people, and then we cut to like 20 years later, the zombie virus is mostly contained and humanity survives in walled off cities, but they're still cities. Like everyone is living just fine. It's the small wilderness areas outside that have the zombies in it. But you as the character, like somehow you get infected, whether it be like through maybe a zombie bit you at the gate, or something happens where you get infected and you have to hide it because they'd throw you out into the wilderness if you don't, and you'll be out there with the zombies. So like you're still smart enough, like you still have your humanity enough, and maybe that's the part of the game is like you have to fight with going over to full zombie, or like trying to stay human. Like you're trying to like keep your humanity, and like the more hungry you get, the more zombified you get, that kind of a thing. So you have to like make the choice of like, do I continue to eat these rats and dogs and other animals and shit to try to like just keep it at bay, or do I like go and kill a person and risk getting caught to like keep the zombieism at bay for a longer period of time?
Oh, I fucking love that. I love that. I got the light bulbs. The light bulbs are happening. Yeah, so it could be something as simple as, what if in this world, if you eat zombie flesh, you become like an intelligent zombie. You know what I mean? It's like because we have to have other zombies who are intelligent besides yourself if we want to have like a co-op feature, which I think would be fun. But
Yeah.
so what if it's like, everyone knows this. It's like, don't ever, eat the dead, kind of a thing. And maybe there's even like signs up, like, be careful, don't eat like, cheap hamburgers from the food truck because you never know what's in there, or,
Right.
or there's people who are racist who are like, don't eat Chinese food. It's not that it's cats, it's like it's zombies, and it's
Right.
terrible shit like that. Right. But what if that's what it is you start the game after the cinematic and it's this thing where something happens where you accidentally eat it or get it in your mouth. Like somebody shot a zombie near like the chain link fence at the end of town while you were like making out with, Sally from next door or like Lookout Lane or whatever. And like some of the zombie meat like goes in your mouth and it's like, oh God, and then, you think everything's gonna be fine, but you're, of course you're like, oh no, I ate zombie. What's gonna happen to me? And then you wake up the next day, and you're like, oh shit, my skin's turning green. I don't have a pulse. Oh no. Yeah, so I think this is fun, right? Again, we can kind of use the high school as like the tutorial stage of the game. It's the Great Plateau or whatever
Right.
of the game where it's a short part of the game where you learn how things work and you have to learn all that stuff. I love the humanity meter, and I think it'd be cool too. Let's add a second meter either in the first part or when we move to the second part. So there should be a humanity meter that's like you maintaining your humanness versus turning into like a mindless shambling zombie, which obviously you don't want. And then there should be a suspicion meter where it's like, what DEFCON level is the town at right now? Are they super on high alert for zombies, or is it real chill because they haven't had an attack in a long time? And the higher the suspicion meter, the harder it is for you to get around and convince people, because of course everyone's like giving you the side eye. Whereas if the suspicion meter is low, you might get away with, oh, what happened to my neighbor? I don't know. He didn't come home after work. You might get away with shit like that. But if the suspicion meter is high, like don't murder your neighbors because people are gonna send out the search party and then you're fucked, right? So I think that would be a really cool way of doing it, where you're monitoring yourself at the same time kind of monitoring the atmosphere of the town around you.
Well, yeah, I mean this would absolutely be a stealth game. This would fall in line with games like Destroy All Humans or Manhunt, Metal Gear Solid, those types of games where you have to sneak around because people will suspect you or people will attack you or kill you or whatever.
Yes.
And on all of those games, they have ways around that, and then they have ways to embrace the chaos. So what about something like yeah, you have to you do have to watch your humanity meter and all that. But what if on the other side, if you don't watch it, like if you let it go full zombie because you're one of the smart zombies, what if one of the benefits to letting the chaos meter like go that far, like the zombie meter, is you can control dumb zombies. So you can you could basically fucking say, fuck it, I'm gonna attack the town and bring like open the gates and let in a bunch of zombies. But the problem is then you're gonna have a really hard time getting away with that. It'll be like in Grand Theft Auto where you go on a killing spree and then you get like the 5 stars with the cops and you have to work really fucking hard to get away at that point. Like it's super hard to hide at that point.
Oh, okay. No, that's perfect. It's absolutely perfect with what I was going to say in a minute, because I mentioned just a little while ago that I thought the game should have 3 sections, right? The high school section, and then like you graduate and it becomes a optional co-op thing, and now you're just, the town is walled off and you're trying to survive. But I was thinking, like, where are you going to go from there? Like, do you want to escape town? But then where would you go? Like, how do you win? And I thought, because it's a zombie game, everybody wants the zombies to win, right? Everybody does. In every zombie story ever, it's more fun when all of the main characters get eaten alive. I mean, come on, we've all seen The Walking Dead. Every time they introduce a new character, it's like, oh, I wonder how many episodes this guy's gonna make,
Right. Exactly.
So I was thinking it would be fun is if the third act is the zombie horde from the wilderness has reached the town, and now the town is completely under siege. So you start off with just high school, everything's perfect except for you. And then the second part of the game is now the suspicion meter basically exists now, because it's like, oh no, like the hordes are on the move, everybody watch out, lock down town, and you're like, fuck, like I was going to try to get out of here, hit the road, and now I can't leave because, you know, they're checking everybody, so now I got to survive in town. Maybe I'll see if I can find some friends, you know, in the same predicament as me, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third part is the horde arrives, and so now what do you do? So, you know, I'm just spitballing here, but if we got that far where a zombie horde arrived and you're a zombie who's been trying to, you know, look alive this whole time,
Mm-hmm.
I think you'd have a couple of options. And maybe these are like different ways to end the game. Like I said before, we could have like different endings. So maybe it's, if the zombie horde gets in to town, it's like, woohoo, you get to survive. So that's probably good for you. Maybe you want to help the zombies get in town, right? Or maybe the zombies get there and you help the humans fight them off, and then the humans accept you, and you're like, woohoo, now they'll let me leave because they think I'm one of them, or, you know, whatever. So maybe there's a couple of different options. But you mentioned controlling zombies, and I'm thinking, dude, like we could have this thing where it's like we have like the bad ending and the good ending, or like, you know, the rare ending or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And what if the hardest ending for experts only is the zombie horde besieges the town, you stealthily help them to win because, oh, oops, humans, I don't know what happened, like that gate got left open, I don't know, it wasn't me.
Okay.
But then, so like you have to keep the suspicion meter at just the right level so you can like sneak around and let the zombies win. But then once the zombies win, your humanity meter has to be just in the right place so that you have enough intelligence to still think, but you're zombified enough that now you're king zombie and you like rule the horde. Like that would be the best way to win the game.
Awesome. So okay, so like part of the stealth of that campaign, like now I'm picturing exactly how this would play out. So like part of the thing would be obviously the town would be overrun. You know, there would be like the military's fighting back, the cops are fighting back, people are hiding, barricading their homes, all that. One of the things you would have to do is like you're with the people, but you have to sneak around and do stuff like maybe when these soldiers are like taking a break, like the soldier's smoking, go hide his rifle. You know, so
Yes,
like
yes.
when the zombies come, he can't fight back and gets killed. Or like
Mhm.
you see like, oh, Mrs. Smith is barricading her house, go and unlock the door. You know, something like little
Yeah.
things like that where but if you get caught, you're fucked. So you
Yeah.
have to like try to help the zombies inconspicuously while letting the zombies just slowly munch their way through town.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. Or like, what if there's like, you know, there's two sentries on the wall on like the night shift, and you could choose if you're like, look, I need some human brains because I really need my zombie meter to be high enough that I can take control of the zombie horde eventually. So like you can choose like, well, I could just go eat some rats and keep living, or maybe I go for the gold, go get one of these like sentries on the wall and like, you know, convince him, you know, throw a rock, and he's like, hey, what's that? He walks off, and then you kill him, eat his brains, and like hide the body in the darkness, and suddenly your like zombie meter goes up, so you're a stronger zombie. Well, at the same time, you know, that's one less person on the walls, and so like the zombies, it's almost like you're courting the loyalty of the zombie horde. Like the more zombie you act, the more likely you are to be king zombie at the end of it, you know?
Right.
So throughout the whole game, they'll have these options of like, well, what do you like? You could play it real safe and just survive and get like the boring ending, but like I guess you technically win, you know, or you know, you could lose, like, oops, you get found out and they shoot you through the brains, and that's all she wrote, right?
Right.
Or you could get real stealthy and gamble with like, okay, I want to get like the good ending, you know? Yeah, that would be super fun. But if it was like kind of like a limited open world, you'd have all these options, like you said, of let me hide the weapons, let me take out the guard, let me, you know, oops, I dropped the bullets in the sewer, you know, or, you know, whatever. And yeah, like it would be cool if you had just, you could kind of do whatever you want as long as you're careful to keep the suspicion meter low enough where the town doesn't go on like high alert.
Yes.
You know?
I'm picturing this from like one of those isometric viewpoints of like, you remember the old Fallout games, not the modern ones, not the first person ones, but where it's like the 3/4 top down. And like I'm picturing the world like that. So like you get a good view of the town overall, but like there are still going to be parts that are obscured. So like you better make sure they can't see what you're doing, you know, that type of a thing. So you have to like constantly be aware of like what's just beyond your vision.
Mhm.
Like, is there a guard up on that tower with binoculars? Will he see what you're doing? Those kind of things. Like, you have to be real careful when you're moving about the town.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that's awesome. Yeah, you can't just assume that because you can't see it on screen that no one else can see you. Like, you could be like, oh, I'm in this dark alley, but like, yeah, the alley faces, the middle of town.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
like you're gonna have to be really, yeah. So I love the idea of it's a stealth game where you're constantly trying to literally survive because you need to eat brains or some equivalent of brains enough to. Well, here's the thing. What if your health meter or whatever we call it, your unhealth meter, gets low enough because you're not eating brains or not eating something to keep you going, you just completely resort to shambling mindless zombie and you walk out into the middle of the street one day and get shot down. Like, oops, you should have ate something.
Hmm.
Uh,
Oh
so
yeah, there absolutely has to be something like that. Like, if your meter runs out, you go full feral or something like that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That could be that same humanity meter where it goes from like, human to zombie, but there should be like a line at like maybe like the 80 or 90% mark where it's like, okay, if you go beyond this line, you completely lose your capacity. All your intelligence is gone. You're full zombie. So you can't go beyond that line or, 90% or whatever. But if you get real close to it, that's when you get the loyalty of the zombie horde. Like you have to be as close to the line as possible without going over, like to
Yeah.
balance it just right. Um,
It's almost like a super meter in a way where it's like you want to get it to that point where you can use all those crazy zombie abilities, but you don't want to push it too far where you lose control of your character. Maybe that could even be like the punishment. It's like you get that far and suddenly you're no longer in control of your character. He's just running around like in a full-on frenzy, causing chaos. And if you're unlucky, he causes chaos in the middle of town and you lose. Maybe if he
okay.
causes chaos in like Mrs. Smith's house, you could still try to get away with it once you calm down.
Oh, that's really good. Like it would be a temporary thing, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe like, yeah, you go into this like berserker zombie mode and you like find the nearest thing to eat. And if the nearest thing to eat is like the neighbor's dog and no one notices, well, good for you. But if you were trying to sneak into the hardware store to sabotage all the rifles and you go into full zombie mode, well, there's a guy there with a bunch of guns and he's going to get you before you get him, So it's
Right.
like you
You're in Andy's gun shop now.
exactly. Yeah, no, this is fun. And I really like this idea of like doing like a co-op mode or whatever you call it, because I don't know I know that gamers speak, uh, you know, but the idea being that like if there's other people playing online, you could sort of find other people like you in town and team up. But first of all, we have to figure out how do you find them? Is it obvious like zombies can scent zombies, or do you have to be real careful of like, okay, I think that person's a zombie, so now I got to gamble on telling them, hey, guess what? I'm dead. Are you dead?
Right.
Uh,
You have to try to sniff it out.
yeah, exactly. And it might be as
Oh,
easy. It might be as easy as like, hey, this person is using like slang that the coders would have never programmed the NPCs to use, so they got to be a real human, like playing somewhere.
dude, that would be awesome. You could add almost an RPG element to it. Like, again, going back to Fallout, where you get like the you get a close up view of the character you're speaking to, like staring straight at the screen. So it almost goes into like first person mode, and then you would
Hmm.
have a dialogue tree. So you'd have a bunch of different questions you could ask them, and
Okay.
their answers, would. But so basically, you got to figure out the right question to ask to try to suss out, are they infected too,
Hmm.
or are they human and will know if I say this? So you have to like ask a bunch of different questions before you get to the zombie stuff. So like ways
Okay.
to try to like figure it out, because then there's that element of danger. If you say the wrong thing, they're going to be like
Hmm.
zombie and point at you, and then suddenly you
Yeah.
lose. So
Yeah.
it could add this layer of like role playing to it, where like you could, if you're leveling up your character, maybe you get better intuition, so you get better dialogue options, or like better persuasion, so you have a
Hmm.
higher chance of persuading them not to speak, not to yell zombie if they're human. And like maybe you can
Hmm.
still convince them, no, I'm human, I was fucking around, I was joking, that
Yeah.
type of a
Hmm.
thing. So I think that would be really fun, because then it would give you reason to keep playing longer. Like, you would want to build your character up.
Oh, I love that. So that kind of solves the problem too of like, how do you play with other players? Well, what if playing other players online, that could just be like an open sandbox mode that you unlock at some point. At some point, if you're far enough in the game and you're playing the story mode, you get good enough where it's like, okay, now you've unlocked the ability to just go into this sort of like sandbox area with all your friends and like fuck around, but it doesn't really affect your main game. Whereas in the main game, there are certain NPCs that are randomly identified, like in the code, as, okay, out of 100 NPCs in town, these 5 could be zombies if you ask the right questions. And so, like, yeah, if you're suspicious but careful enough to find which of the NPCs are secretly zombies like you, if you do find them, it's like you recruit them, and once you do, now you have other zombies, 3 or 4 other zombies that you can control, so that you can use them in your plans to like let the horde take over, right? So you could set up like schemes, like like heists or whatever, where it's like you could give you can either give them instructions or temporarily switch your your controlled character to that other to the NPC and say, okay, so while me, Mr. Main Zombie, my avatar character, I'm gonna sneak into the guardhouse and poison the coffee so that we can all have the brains of the guards, and yet at the same time that's gonna help the zombie horde. Whatever, I'm just making this up. I'm gonna sneak in and poison the coffee, and you, Sally NPC zombie, you're gonna go around the side and like take your top off in the window so they all look at you, and then you, Joe Bob next door NPC zombie, you're gonna go and like cut the power. You know what I mean? So like you can kind of like you can set up these scenarios where you can get more complicated with how quickly and how well you can sneakily take over town and make it easy pickings for the zombie horde.
I like that. I like that a lot, because then you could do stuff like you said with the guards, you could do something like where you set it up to be like, okay, we're going to have 2 or 3 zombies waiting to strike. We have the one zombie distract them, the other zombie cut the power. Then while they're distracted, have the 3 zombies that were waiting to strike rush in under the guise of darkness and eat these humans, and then quickly disperse of the bodies. So it's like, whereas one player or like one singular zombie wouldn't have been able to pull that off. You'd have to wait to like pull one of the group away from the guard, the guard group. But if you have a group of zombies, you could set up this more elaborate trap where you can get you could get three humans for the price of one, that type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and again, just from like a tutorial perspective, I just used the name Sally twice for female characters because I'm unoriginal. But like that actually would be kind of neat, going back to the setup of the game at the very beginning during like the cinematic. If we do this thing where it's like you're on Lover's Lane making out with like Sally, the girl next door, and then some zombie gets shot, it goes in your mouth. What if at some point during the game you realize, hey, wait, if I got zombie flesh in my mouth, did Sally get in her mouth too? And there it becomes this tutorial where you learn how to identify the zombie NPCs and like recruit them to your side, because you already have one where the odds of Sally being a zombie like you are really high. So it's like, okay, let's go learn how to do this with a character who's probably already friendly with me because I was making out with her at the beginning.
Well, okay, hold on. What if you just gave me an idea? So like the start of the game, this adds a whole different layer. So at the start of the game, you're on the date. Like I don't know why I keep thinking of the main guy named Brad. Just the name that kept popping. Brad the zombie. Yeah. So okay, so you're playing as Brad, and you're out on a date with Sally, right? Like this the opening cinematic or like they'll do maybe those like moving panels where they do like the panel, but like part of it will move, like almost like I'm trying to think, like Twisted Metal did this with their cut scenes. I know Mortal Kombat does it with their editing.
Yeah, it's kind of like a motion comic kind of a thing.
Yeah. So I'm kind of picturing it like that, like a painted motion comic, where it's like, the two of you are out on a date. Maybe you're at like the boardwalk area of town, right? Like there's like rides and games and stuff like that, and you go and you both get a burger and a shake at the little like Shake Shack type thing. And then on the news the next day, there's a whole thing of like, tainted meat made its way into town, and people are talking about like, don't eat at the following establishments, and you
Oh,
like the
okay.
whole town is on high alert, but you and Sally ate there last night. So now it's the whole thing of like everybody's question, like, who's a zombie? Who's a zombie? Who's in town as a zombie?
Okay,
Everyone's
sure.
freaking out. So now, and you start noticing the symptoms. So like the game would open with you noticing that like, I'm not feeling too well. Like maybe we'll have like the scene of him looking in the mirror, sticking his tongue out, like pulling down one eyelid, that type of thing.
Yep.
And so then we go to school that day, and we do the whole tutorial, like we said, where you're a senior in high school, and you have to keep it hidden that you ate at that place. Even though
Hmm.
several people saw you out on your date, you're like, oh no, we didn't eat there. We ate over here. And you got to make up. So we get the dialogue tree options early on. We kind of learn how that mechanic works. We learn the stealth mechanic, like maybe the scientists are in town, like checking. They want to like do blood tests on everybody. So they're like going through class by class, and you have to like be like, oh, hey, I need to use the bathroom before they
Yeah.
come to your class. And you have to
Yeah.
like hide out in the school and miss getting your blood taken. Like you have to go through all these like stealth
Hmm.
mechanics to see like how high school works. And then
Yep.
like the next chapter would be, okay, you out on the town trying to, satiate your zombie hunger while still staying under the radar. And like,
Hmm.
and this would, of course, would just escalate and escalate, because again, if tainted meat got in the town, the
Hmm.
military that's there, the scientists that are there, like kind of quarantining the town, more and more zombies would be popping up. So like they'd be
Yeah.
like, oh shit, old Mr. Witherby is a zombie, shoot him, like that type of a thing. And
Yeah.
like, so you're trying to stay the whole game, you're trying to stay under the radar, but you're also looking for other smart zombies like you to try to take down the man.
Yeah, I love that. And it can be this thing where it's not just like an open world where you can play forever and ever and ever, like Breath of the Wild or Skyrim or something, where instead it's the more time passes, the more the suspicion meter is spiking. Like maybe
Mm-hmm.
every day, it's like it's different every day. Like people go home, they go to sleep, and so it kind of goes down. But every day, it's like, okay, it's spiking faster and faster and faster because the military is showing up, and oh shit, the horde is on the move, and so they're going to send in more guys and the National Guard and whoever. And so the longer that you just like fuck around having fun with the game, the harder it gets. So you really kind of have to like get to the story, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is kind of a fun thing. And again, maybe at some point we can unlock this sort of like sandbox mode where you can play with your friends, and like, it's kind of frozen in time, so you can just, fuck around and have fun,
Yeah.
But as far as the story is concerned, you can't just fuck around. Like you gotta figure things out because you have to survive. It's sort of the sort of reverse survival horror because you're a horror trying to survive.
Yup.
Yeah, but that'd be good.
Oh
And
man.
maybe Sally disappears after the opening sequence where there's something where she's like she goes to her grandma's house or whatever, and she comes back just in time for graduation, but you don't get a chance to talk to her until afterwards. So you're all the way outside the tutorial into the open world section of the game before you're able to even try to find Sally. Because I mean, any smart player is going to be like, hey, if I got sick, she got sick, so where's Sally? She's my friend, like my girlfriend, like I can talk to her, I
Mm-hmm.
can tell her the truth. But like we have to take her off the table for a short while so that you as the player can get through the tutorial. And then after high school she graduates, you don't get a chance to talk to her because her family's around and you don't want to like reveal that that you two are the smart zombies. So now one of the first things that you're going to do is try to find a way to get Sally alone so you can talk to her and then figure out through the careful dialogue tree if she's sick or not, like you. And like, so she could potentially be your first ally if you play
Mm-hmm.
your cards right. Or you could just choose to say, screw it, I'm just going to do this on my own. So that's the cool thing about this idea and like the technology of video game coding and programming these days is there could be all of these different scenarios where you could choose to play the game in like any way you wanted to, as long
Right.
as you got to the same goal of the zombie horde is coming, and like what are you going to do, like what ending are you going to get.
Oh yeah, and honestly, I think most of the most addictive games, and like at least the ones that I find myself coming back to again and again, are the types of games that like they have a loose plot, and then they give you a set of rules, and they're just like, have fun.
Yeah.
Like Don't Starve and 7 Days to Die are two of the games that I play the most. Like they're my two most reoccurring games. And both of them, yeah, there's a loose story. Like you can kind of piece together the story while playing the game, but it's just they give you a handful of mechanics and resources, and they kind of leave it up to you how you want to play it. And it's highly addictive to play a game like that where you can just kind of be in charge, you know.
Yeah.
And something like this, like having it, give you the tutorial, give you like a loose idea of where the story's going, like what you got to do to win,
Mhm.
but allow you to get there how you want to.
Yeah, exactly. And all the different items and locations and NPCs in the game, they would have so many different possibilities. Like you said, you could, steal people's weapons or sabotage their houses or, cut the power, cut the phone lines. You could kill NPCs so that there just aren't as many humans around, like, you could have a strategy where you're like, well, shit, like if I can get the mayor and the chief of police and the sheriff and all the people who are in charge, if I can kill them stealthily one by one, eat their brains, that's good for me. But then also it sets the town in chaos because all their leaders are gone. Like that would be a cool way to play the game,
Right. And yeah, and you could like make, maybe because again the townies are worried, like, oh, my neighbor's a zombie. Like there's that like whole it's almost like a Red Scare type of thing. Like everyone's afraid of their neighbors. When you do stuff like that, if you kill like the chief of police or the mayor or some kind of high profile figure, and that gets on the news, then people are like on high alert, like, oh my god, zombies are in town. And so now like getting away with anything is going to be 10 times harder, and that would be a
Yeah.
way to naturally up the difficulty level. It kind of reminds me of like years ago in World of Warcraft. One of the things that they implemented was like these hardcore challenge modes for certain boss fights, where it's like, okay, if you do this one thing before the boss fight, it's going to make it way harder. So like you could play it normal, or you could challenge yourself and do this other thing and get a better reward. And like the one that always sticks in my head is there was a robot boss named Mimiron, who there was a big giant red button in his lab. and it was like, do not push, and if you push the big shiny red button, the fight is like 10 times harder.
Oh, okay.
But you also have a chance of winning like really good rewards. So but yeah, something like that. So like you could play the game without killing them. You could play it very stealthily, play it quiet, and still get to the ending. Or you could be like, fuck it, I'm gonna put the town in chaos and I'm still gonna win.
Yeah, exactly. Like
that.
because if you're good enough at the game, bumping off the leaders of town is going to increase that like suspicion meter, make the game harder. But if you're good enough, it's still a good strategy because you can get rid of all the leaders, everybody's in chaos, and then it'll be a cinch to just open up the gates and let the horde in because it'll be like a chicken with its head cut off, running around crazy. So it's a ballsy strategy, but if you're good, you could do it. Or, if you're not so good, you could just play it super stealthy and just sneak around, eat rats, maybe kill the occasional NPC off to the side somewhere that no one's going to notice, and then sabotage shit so that eventually when the horde gets to the gates, it's like, oops, all the bolts fell out. Like, I wonder who did that,
Who could that be? Was it me then? Who?
Exactly. Oh, and this would be fun too, because in these types of games, there's usually ways to earn like, silly bonus points just for fun. And right. And so what if, and I'm also thinking of the ending. So like I'm going somewhere with this. So what if there's a rival town that gets mentioned a lot, like especially in the cinematic at the beginning, and it'd be kind of funny in the way that, like, I don't know if you watch Parks and Rec, but the way that Pawnee, Indiana, they have their town next door called Eagleton, and it's like Eagleton is so much better than them that they fucking hate each other. It's like, Pawnee is like the regular people and Eagleton's all like the rich assholes. And, for the first couple of seasons, every time something goes wrong, it must be Eagleton, fucking with us. So it would be funny if it was like, you're in like Little Town, USA, but there's this rival town down the street, Shelbyville, whatever,
Yeah, I was going to say it's like Shelbyville and Springfield.
Yeah, there you go. See, I don't know why I didn't think about The Simpsons immediately, but yeah, so it's like Shelbyville. And so like in the cinematic, they're like, there's a zombie horde coming, is it all Shelbyville's fault? News at 11, like shit like that. And like every time you see anything advertised, it's always like, the football game tonight. It's like, Littletown USA versus Shelbyville. Are we gonna win? Of course we are. Whatever. And so what if occasionally, as you're playing the game, you sort of earn bonus points because you're like, oh, like I killed a guy wearing like a Shelbyville varsity jacket, or this guy's his mom is from Shelbyville, so every time you get something involved with the rival town, it's like a little bonus point for you where your health meter goes up more than it should because it was like, fuck those Shelbyville people. It's like but at the same time you're like, why are their brains worth twice as much as ours? Like, I don't know if I like that.
Right.
So it would be cool at the end if you get the good ending and you become like King Zombie, ruler of the dead. And of course it would be like, what do you do now, King Zombie? I'm going to Shelbyville to eat all their brains. And you like lead the horde. And then it would just be a cool way to end the game, but also maybe a sequel,
Yes. That would be awesome. I love it.
Oh man, see, this is why I wanted to talk this out with you, because I'm like, I don't know what to do with this, but if I made it a video game, like it would be really fun. Except I don't know shit about games.
Right. Well, no, I tell you right now, this is definitely a game I would fucking play. Like that is a lot of fun. Like, and I love those types of stealth games. So I'm a big fan of that. And well, I love zombies. So if I was zombie comedy stealth, I'm in. Like I would absolutely play the hell out of that.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, and I tried to look this up because I'm like, there's got to be games that people have already came up with where you get to play as a zombie. I mean, shouldn't there be?
There are. There's Stubbs the Zombie.
Mm-hmm.
That came out, God, I want to say like 2004 or 5. I know it was a 360 game. I never did get to play it because it was buggy as hell, and it got really shit reviews, and I could never find like a way to play it without paying for it. Like I didn't want to buy a $60 game only to have it be buggy. But yeah, I know there was that one, and I'm blanking now. Oh my God, I know there are other games where you can play as a zombie. Like I know Left 4 Dead, you can play as a zombie, like on the opposite side. And I know there's like some like multiplayer horror games like where you can play as a zombie. I think Call of Duty Zombies. I think there's a mode where you get to control the horde. But yeah, there's definitely games out there where you can play as a zombie.
Yeah, you mentioned Left 4 Dead. That's the one that I saw on a list. I just Googled it trying to find some games where people, you had some opportunities to play as the zombie. I think Contagion is one that I saw. I've never seen that game before, but I guess that's like one of the options. But yeah, I was hoping to not find anything, and I'm glad I really didn't. I mean, I found, yes, some stuff like you just mentioned, but I Googled like kind of, squinting my eyes, like, please, I don't want any good answers here, because I was like, trying to find a game where you get to play as a zombie, but in like stealth mode, like you mentioned, where you're sneaking around as the zombie throughout the whole game. Because most of the games that are out there seem to be either it's a alternate mode in the game where you get to be a zombie for some short period of time, but that's not really the point of the game. Or if you are a zombie the whole game, it's not really like a stealth survival. It's just a, eat all the brains you can kind of a thing. So I was like, okay, cool. And again, it might be out there somewhere, but I couldn't find it. So I think this is a pretty good idea for a stealth survival game where it's, be a zombie and, kill your townsfolk and try to get away with it.
Yeah, honestly, the only game I can think of that's even close to what we just talked about is Stubbs. And like I said, I never played it. I do know that you are a zombie and that you're trying to eat brains or eat people. And it's a comedy, but it got a shitload of bad reviews. And I know it also got into a big controversy at the time because this is back when video games couldn't have anything violent in it, because if it had violence in it was, and I want to say it was because of they were like, it shows cannibalism, and it's like, but they're zombies. But again, you're the one, since you're playing the zombie, it was that whole thing of like,
sure,
how the MPAA is like, oh, you can have monsters, but they have to die by the end of the film, like that whole stupid thing. Or like the comic book code where it's like, you can have vampires, but they can't be undead.
I know. So you get Morbius, the living vampire. Yeah, sure.
Right.
Whatever you say, man. Or even like Night of the Living Dead. Like, isn't that just Night of the Dead? Because there's dawn and day and Night of the Dead, but they had to add
Yep.
living because people were all like touchy about, oh, it can't be about dead things.
Right.
That's stupid. Yeah, so I think that's just about it, honestly. I'm happy that this is a shorter episode, honestly, because the last episode ran really long. I felt like we had a lot of moving pieces on the board that we had to figure out with the murder
Yeah.
mystery and just trying to get our story to a point where it would make sense as a mystery. We had to add all these new characters in and explain who they were. And it was a fun episode with the Breakfast Club. But yeah, it was a long episode. So I'm glad that this one is going to end up being shorter. And yeah, we just got in and got out as far as I'm concerned. I think this is a really fun idea. I had a fun time chatting with you about how we would make Look Alive into a sort of reverse survival stealth game. And yeah, I would play the shit out of this. It would be really fun.
Oh, hell yeah. Honestly, like I highly recommend for anyone, yourself included, if you haven't played Party Hard, check it out. It's super cheap. It's easy to run. It's a very basic game. It's kind of retro graphics. It's on Steam. I want to say it's like $5 at this point. Like, it's not much at all. But it's highly addictive, and it's a hell of a lot of fun, and kind of the basis for what I was thinking about with the mechanics for this.
Sure.
So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'd play the fuck out of this.
I don't know. I want to play it right now. I have the same feeling I get after we do a really good episode, and it's like, fuck, man, I want to go watch this movie. Like, I really want to sign off and go play Look Alive right now.
I know, right? we have to make friends with some game developers.
I know. Well, shit, man, half the reason why I do this is because I just want to take some of these ideas and get them out of our heads. Like, you and I have so many story ideas that just live in our heads. And like, yeah, we've written some scripts and we've made some comics, but like, we have so many. And when I say so many, I mean, I don't think the listeners really understand. We're talking decades worth of like crazy story ideas. How many times a month do one of us text the other one with, hey, I got high or I got drunk or I'm up late and I had this crazy idea, and then you write a text message that you have to copy into like 4 balloons or 4 bubbles because it won't all fit in one, and you're like, oh, hey man, sorry for the long message, and it takes 3 days to respond to it because I had to read a whole fucking script
because it's like a damn novel.
Exactly. And it always starts off with like, oh, I had this crazy idea, and you get 3 sentences in and you're like literally writing dialogue line by line by line, and you're writing a whole fucking story. I mean, we went back through our text message conversations for the last decade. There's got to be a dozen movies and like 20 novels in there.
Oh yeah. Oh, easily. Well, and that's the thing, like, going back to the stuff that we created when we were making comic books, I still have a file on my computer with just like lists and lists of names and titles and like elevator pitches for like random shit. When the Boogeyman's Closet was originally going to be an anthology horror comic, I got a bunch of those written down. And then we have like all of our different like book ideas, and of course we could never do anything small. It was like, here's this one story and here's the 14 sequels, It was like every single time. And it's funny because this type of thing extends even further back when text messaging wasn't a very prevalent way of communicating. Do you remember, like, back when I was living in Rochester, I literally got up in the middle of the night with an idea for a sequel to the sequel to our first comic, because we did Upai, and then we had Revenge of the Living Teddy planned, and it was going to be like, it was going to end, and that was going to be the end of that story. And then suddenly I got inspiration for a third part, and I like pounded out an entire script in the middle of the night and just emailed it to you. It was like, oh my God, you got to read this. And it was just like,
yeah,
it was this great. And then of course you emailed me back with your ideas, and I was like, oh my God, I got another issue. And then like and like we did that for like 5 issues, and like this that used to happen constantly back in the day.
Dude, I still have a folder in my email that's just called ideas. And it's like every time we have one of those email exchanges, I throw it in there. And every once in a while, I just go back and look at those old emails. And I'm like, Jesus, like, what were we on? But at the same time, like, there's so many good ideas in there and stuff that we've collaborated on together. And, just recently, and I'll say it here because I want to do something with it. And maybe if I say it and get it out in the ether, it'll happen. But so I had this idea recently for a Christmas horror story just based on the word chimney. because you and I were talking about how back in the day we used to just come up with a random dictionary word like, stairway or
Hmm.
pumpkin or whatever, and just come up with a horror story just based on a one word prompt. And recently I did that with the word chimney, and I'm standing in my garage in the middle of a reorganization project on my phone, just, oh my God, 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 in the middle of the fucking summer, not even Christmas time. And you wake up and there's like a text message so long that you had to like copy it into like an email just to read it. And I'm like, this just randomly happens in the middle of the day. And I must have written a couple of thousand words of like, okay, scene one, here's how we set it all up,
Yep.
and we both do go back and forth like that shit all the
Oh fuck
time.
yeah.
And then we spend all this time on the podcast, coming up with cool stories for like pop culture and Hollywood properties, which I love to do. And I
Hmm.
think it's what people like to hear because these are familiar properties. People want to listen to the cool ideas about the movies that they're into. At least that's what I hope our audience is, you
Hmm.
know. But every once in a while, it's fun to just be like, "Hey, no, I got my own ideas," and so this was kind of a softball, kind of an easy pitch just to kind of get the ball rolling. But this is one that I literally wrote down in a notebook in 2011, and
Hmm.
I've been thinking about it for years. Like, fuck, like I cannot figure this one out. Every time we come up with a story idea, one of us is always able to be like, dude, here's what you should do, you know?
Right.
But this is one of those ones where I'm like, I just can't figure it out. So that's why I brought it to the table, so we can kind of do it together. And I think it worked out pretty well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think this is a dilemma that most artists, especially like, artists that aren't professionals, run into, is the concept of the fan art versus original art. This is something that I talked to Tara about recently. We were both lamenting how when we do conventions, we need to mostly focus on our fan art because that's what's going to sell. That's what people want to see. They want to see
Hmm.
familiarity. They want to see characters that they know and love, just done in a different style. Which, and again, don't get me wrong, I'm a fanboy too. I love that stuff as well. From a creative standpoint, like I like to find ways that I can do something unique with the characters I love. So that's what like gave birth to the pop culture confessionals for all those years. It was like, let me do something kind of silly with these characters that aren't silly. Um,
Hmm.
or like some of the horror movie stuff I've done recently, none of it is, hey, here's just a picture of Jason. It's like, here's a silhouette of someone holding a pickaxe, and then the prominence of the picture is Jason's mother's head, stuff like that,
Hmm.
where you do fan art in a way where it's kind of more your own interpretation versus just, hey, here's a character we all know and love. And that's kind of what this show does. It's like, we take a property that everyone knows and loves, and we kind of do a fan art version of it where we do our own telling or our own reimagining of a sequel, or we come up with something based around an existing property. It's the equivalent of making fan art, and
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong with that. That's a fuckload of fun, and that's something that a lot of fans love. That's the whole reason why there's fan fiction, which this show is. you
Yeah.
know um but like your own stuff, there's something extremely satisfying about pulling an entire story out of the ether, or like in terms of art, like pulling an image out of your head that only exists in your head and throwing it down on the page, and then being able to look at it and show it to other people. And that's the fun of doing these types of episodes, is we can take a story that exists only in our headspace and like put it out there into the world, and hopefully people enjoy it as much as we do.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's funny to think about Raised by Rentals as like fan fiction. I'm like, I don't think I ever thought about that before, but shit, that's exactly what it is.
Oh, it totally is. Yeah.
Yeah, but at
we're,
the
we're
same
we're
time,
not slash fiction though. Well, let's
yeah,
get it
oh,
right.
let's get it right. I know. But at the same time, like that doesn't discourage me either, because there are authors out there like novelists who started off writing fan fiction, like
Mhm.
E.L. James is probably the most famous one from 50 Shades of Grey. She
Yep.
started off writing Twilight fan fiction. In fact, that's what 50 Shades of Grey originally started off as. It was, Twilight fan fiction or slash fiction, I guess.
Hmm.
But there's also like Cassandra Clare and Naomi Novik. I'm looking at a list, and I didn't even know that Rainbow Rowell started off doing Harry Potter fan fiction, but that's really cool. Anyway, so yeah, I think that that's great company to be in. People who were able to put in the work, do some fan fiction, and eventually turn that into original stuff. And you and I have struggled for years with just having enough free time to sit down and write scripts and write novels, and not only free time, but also like once you write a script, like what do you do with it? You draw your own comic, that takes years. Do you find someone else to draw it for you? That costs money if you want to pay people the way that they should be paid. You know, if
Yep.
you want to turn it into a movie, that's a whole team of people you got to get involved. So writing is a tough gig to get into if you're not writing prose like novels. I feel like even that's really hard to get into, but it's probably easier than anything else that involves script writing. At least in my experience, that's been true. I prefer writing scripts to
Mhm.
prose. I feel it works better for my own personal style, and writing screenplays or comic book scripts or whatever. But man, trying to turn that into like a paying gig is damn near impossible.
Oh,
So
hell yeah. No, and
having
I'm
this
right there with you on the scripts versus prose. I definitely prefer that.
Yeah, I mean, I can write prose, but it's always, for me, it always feels like it's such a struggle. I feel like I'm trying to transform my idea into prose rather than with a script where it's like, this is how I'm envisioning the idea. I write in my
Yeah.
head in the script format of description and dialogue and description and dialogue. And that's not to say that I can't, turn a poetic phrase now and again, but it's just not the way I prefer to work. If we were doing, Hollywood screenplays, shit, I'd be a pig in shit, but it's
Oh, hell yeah.
just or comic book scripts, and I went through the I went through all the motions multiple times in the past of writing up comic book scripts and then trying to either get them sold or hire artists or find a partner, and it's always a struggle as a writer. I feel like there's probably more writers out there than artists and filmmakers who can actually like put shit into the world, but that's the beauty of doing podcasting because we were able to find a way to be creative and put actual finished product out in the world in the form of podcast episodes, and then doing something like this where it's totally original. I mean, this is new for Raised by Rentals, but I don't know about you, but after this two-parter, I plan on having more RBR original programming in the future.
Oh, hell yeah. No, I totally love doing this, and it gives us an outlet for a lot of those stories that, like, and I'm gonna sit here and pat myself on the back and pat you on the back for some of those stories are really fun. Like, they are still really fun ideas, and I think that given an hour or two, we could flesh out a really fun tale. And in a way, it's almost like campfire tales, like, when you make up a story with your
Mhm.
friends around the fire and it only exists in that headspace. Like, that's kind of what we're doing with a lot of our old scripts, is telling them on this podcast, or like these old ideas. Like you said, you've been sitting on this idea since 2011. It's one of those things. It's like it finally gets to have some life where it gets shared with the world. And like, would it be cooler if you actually got to spearhead a video game? Fuck yeah, it would be. But at the same time, now it exists. It's out there.
Yeah.
The
Hmm.
story exists. um One thing I did want to say really quick, when you were talking about the difficulties of making comics, on the flip side of things, as an artist working from a script that someone else has written, uh, one of the things I find extremely difficult when working with a writer who has come up with the vision entirely themselves. Like you and I, when we always worked together, we came up with the stories together. So when we plotted out the pages, when we plotted out the look
Hmm.
of the book, there was a lot of wiggle room, and we kind of knew how to craft the page based around what we wanted it to happen. When
Hmm.
a writer is just giving you a page, a lot of times they're envisioning it in motion. Like we all envision things in motion,
Hmm.
but with a comic, it's static images. Same thing with a children's book; it's static images. So a lot of times, what I end up dealing with is people that will say, like, they'll have a page and they'll have like 20 things that need to happen on that page with all this dialogue and other stuff. And it's like, there is no way all of that is going to fit on this page with the amount of detail and expressions and, proper pauses that you want between character dialogue. Like, it's not going to happen. So you have to, like, there's then that fight with the writer of like, well, I could do it this way, or we can make this into like 3 pages. Like,
Yep.
yeah, I understand you're picturing it in motion, but you got to remember these are static images. So it's tough. Making comic books is hard for anyone that hasn't made them. It's very fucking hard.
It's super difficult to do the artwork for sure. Even writing the script I find is tougher than like say a movie script because
Oh yeah.
for the exact same reasons. And I have one script in particular that it's been on ice for a little while because in my head it's like, yeah, I finished it, but in reality I need to go back and like actually, finish figuring out all of the sort of page and panel transitions because I wanted to write it to find someone to draw it. It's a very heavy sci-fi story. It required somebody who would really like to do that sort of thing. But I need to go back and actually figure all those transitions out. But that's the part where it got boring because in my head I can see exactly what it looks like. I've read so many comics and I know so much
Right.
about them that I can see it panel by panel by panel. But I could just write it really loosely for, hey, Mr. Artist person, figure this out or fill this in or draw whatever you want. But since I was trying to hire somebody to draw it, I wanted to have it broken down as much as I could, panel to panel, so they would kind of understand where I was coming from. Even so, there's so many places where I wrote into the script, like, have fun with this part, or, this is a 2-page spread and, it has these elements without necessarily like breaking down, into specific details. It always makes me think of Warren Ellis, and I don't remember the exact issue of Ultimate Fantastic Four, but I remember Stuart Immonen was the artist, and he wrote in his newsletter once that the easiest money he ever made in his life was the money he got paid for those Ultimate Fantastic Four scripts, something like $3,000 or $4,000 per issue. And he said, there was a section in there where I did 3 2-page spreads in a row, and every one was, there's a rocket about to launch, have fun. And then the next one, again, 2 pages, the next one is more of the same, and it was like, just go crazy, Stuart, and this guy's spending fucking probably weeks drawing these big widescreen double page spreads of like, Fantastic Four rockets firing into space, and Warren Ellis is just cashing checks,
Right. That reminds me of a meme that went around for a while where it was like a web comic where there was a panel. It showed like a writer and an artist sitting at a Comic-Con panel, and the writer was going on talking about, well, I much prefer, making comics to doing movies because, with a comic book, I can just say we need a giant space armada, and it's the same budget as if I had talking heads, and then the artist just attacks him and starts beating the hell out of him.
Exactly. Well, and it's true for the writer, but of course the artist, the difference between one spaceship and an armada could be one day drawing versus weeks drawing the same
Yep.
page, and they're getting paid the exact same amount of money. So yeah, the budget's the same, but it's not the same level of effort. It is
Hell
really
no.
cool. It is really cool that you can have an unlimited special effects budget in comics, but you still have to understand that there's a person who has to draw this,
Right.
And I always find myself following or being a fan of writers more so than artists in comics, and I sometimes almost feel guilty about it because I'll follow a writer from one book to another book, and every time that they're moving from title to title, usually they're working with different artists, and I might appreciate that artist, but I more often find myself saying, hey, what else did this author write? I want to read more, rather than saying, hey, what else did this artist draw? I want to see more.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel guilty about that because comics is nothing without the art.
Right.
It's an essential part of the creative process. Like you can have a comic without a script, but you can't have a comic without the art, really.
Right. But I mean, I agree. I'm guilty of it as well. And again, being someone who has drawn more comics than I shouldn't say drawn more than I've written, but drawn more that have been published than ones I've written that have been published. But I definitely follow writers more than I follow artists. I mean, there's a handful like, Eric Powell, Jim Mahfood, Scotty Young. Like I always look for their stuff. But yeah, for the most part, it's more the writers that I follow, like the Warren Ellises and Garth Ennis's and Alan Moore's of the world.
So we should wrap this up. I'll just give a quick shout out then for one artist that I recently, I'll say rediscovered or recently realized how fucking amazing they are. And so I'll just call it out since we're on the topic. But I fucking love Andy Bellinger. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He's worked for all kinds of comic book companies professionally, Marvel and DC and some Wildstorm stuff at one point. And I recently read 2 of the comics that he drew and just completely and utterly fell in love. He works a lot for Lethal Comics, which is the Canadian company that is putting out that Psycho Gorman anthology on Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
And they put out a lot of really amazing comics. And he did a comic for them, his own creation, called Mother Trucker, which is everything that the title says it is. It is a sci-fi professional wrestling comic where truckers battle over the rights to like pick up loads to like, space freight across the galaxy. It's fucking amazing. But it's everything you'd want out of like an 80s sci-fi story. It's so well done, and I love the artwork. But then I also recently read a comic that he drew in 2017 2018 for Becky Cloonan. It came out under Image, which is called Southern Cross, which I didn't read originally, honestly, because the title is kind of boring. But it's this amazing sci-fi story about a mining community on some distant moon, and the main character is traveling there on like a space freighter to investigate a murder, and then some crazy sci-fi shit like Event Horizon style shit starts happening on the space freighter, and then eventually the action travels to this remote mining community on some moon somewhere, and it is so fucking gorgeous. I love the story. Becky Cloonan is an amazing writer, but the artwork, I was just pausing at every page, like, oh my god, like I cannot believe I haven't read more of this guy's comics. How is he not like the fucking hottest artist of the year or the decade or whatever? Like Andy Bellinger is so fucking amazing. On top of the fact that he like moonlights as a fucking wrestler for IWS Wrestling as Bob the Animal Anger, which is a great fucking wrestling name.
That's awesome. As I'm looking him up right now. It's funny. Like I've seen his art without knowing who it was.
Yeah.
So like, cause I've seen that Psycho Gorman art, I've seen Southern Cross, and I'm like, oh my God, I've seen this guy's work before, and he's really fucking good. I'm glad you said the name, cause I never had a name to put to the art. So yeah, no, he's fucking talented as hell.
Yeah, hell yeah. So yeah, we'll put paid to what we said about how, it's harder for artists, and yeah, I'll throw that name out there. So if you're listening and you want to check out some cool sci-fi shit, Andy Bellinger or Bob the Animal Anger, definitely Google it. I highly recommend Southern Cross, even though it never got a proper ending because it got canceled. But Mother Trucker, he's only ever sold them on Kickstarter so far, but I'm assuming there's going to be another one coming out soon because the story's not done. But yeah, anything by Andy Bellinger is fucking amazing. Check it out.
Very cool.
Anyway, Mike, so I'm glad we did this. This was really, really fun. Last time we did a late night double feature picture show. So we're going to call this new series of RBR original programming the Double Venti Extra Hot Spooky Spice Latte with Global Milk. But no, that's too hard to say. So we'll call this
it would give you diarrhea.
Yes, I think I would. No, we'll call it the Fright for the Whole Family double pack this time. So next time you're up, man. I hope you have a cool idea. I know you mentioned something to me once, and I vaguely remember what it was. So hopefully I'll come to the table as empty paged as you did today.
I have since changed the idea pretty drastically.
Ooh, okay.
So, because you had mentioned something in specific that I had not considered, and I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that could be taken the wrong way. So let me change that a little bit.
Okay.
And I have what I think is going to be a very dark but fun story.
Nice. I hope so. And well, just based on the vague idea you told me last time, that's why I mentioned the Fright for the Whole Family, because I thought, yeah, it's a video game. Your idea, I thought, would probably be good for, potential younger viewers or younger readers. I don't want to give anything away. So yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out what it is. It's always fun to come to the table completely empty-handed and just have the challenge of the improv. So yeah, looking forward to that one. And I hope everyone tunes in next time for part 2 of the Fright for the Whole Family double pack. Woohoo! But in the meantime, if you want to check out more podcasts and other awesome creative people, check out radpantheon.com, a art collective of creative friends supporting each other and helping to spread the word about rad stuff. There's podcasts, there's music, there's movie makeup, there's t-shirts and merch and all kinds of cool shit. So check out all the creatives at radpantheon.com. You'll find our show and information at raisedbyrentals.com and at raisedbyrentals on all the socials. Mike, is there anything you want to plug?
Yeah, over at the Boogeyman's Closet, we are finishing up our month of What a Twist movies with Psycho. And then we are moving into October with our spoopy anthology month. We always talk about how anthology movies are a huge watch around Halloween. So we decided to come back to them. It's been about 3 years since we've tackled anthologies, so figured it's about due time again. Really looking forward to that month. We also have a Friday the 13th special on the way and a fun Halloween special. So Boogeyman's Closet is going to be very busy in October, but check us out, Boogeyman's Closet, on all the socials, as well as Count Creepyhead's Saturday Morning Monster Mash. We got a very fun 100th episode coming up. I'm very excited about that. So check out Count Creepyhead Saturday Morning Monster Mash, Creepyhead with a K, on all the socials or on Rad Pantheon.
Nice. Yeah, that's right. The 100th episode is about to come out. That's really cool. And on Boogeyman's Closet, I was really excited to join recently. The episode's out by now for the Class of 1999 back to school special with my kid Tegan and my brother. So we had the Murder of Strasbourg's.
Yep.
That was a ton of fun talking about that crazy sci-fi movie from the 90s. And if you listen to it, just take a shot first, because the three of us are like fighting to talk the whole time. Like, oh, I have something. Oh, I want to say. It gets a little crazy, but that was definitely a lot of fun.
It's also a testament to how fun that movie is and how much there is to talk about.
Yeah.
So
that movie's definitely underrated and not well known enough. So yeah, check out Class of 1999 for sure. But in the meantime, thanks to everyone for tuning in to the Raised by Rentals program for our RBR original programming presentation. If you had fun with us, drop us a line on the socials, leave a comment, leave a rating, and let us know what you think we should improv off the dome next time. And with that, I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
We have to return some videotapes. Raised by Rentals is a member of the Rad Pantheon Network. Visit radpantheon.com to support rad stuff. The theme music is Forbidden Fruit by Velvet Bethany. You can purchase music and learn more at velvetbethany.com.
All right, look alive, people.